Welcome to the Viral Solutions podcast. Today we're going to talk about sales psychology as it relates to B2C or business to consumer selling. And this is part 2. In part 1, we talked about picking people's brains in the hopes of understanding what makes them tick. Now, our mission today is trying to figure out how B2C buyers have certain behaviors that can impact or affect our selling success. But first, let's say this. Here at Viral Solutions, we absolutely love delving into the psychology of human beings. Not much rivals the study of true motivations of your fellow earthly passengers. However, it's important to first accept that figuring out humans is like herding cats. We are a complicated species simply due to the fact that we have emotions. We like what the French poet and philosopher Paul Valéry, who was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 12 times. Sorry, Paul, if I butchered your name. And here's what he has to say about psychology. The purpose of psychology is to give us a completely different idea of the things we know best. Unquote. So now that you've admitted to the fact that we're all a bit bewildered about the behavior of others, certainly never ourselves, and that we can't truly know the mind of another human, let us just say that in this podcast, we will do our level best to help you discover the secrets of B2C buyer behavior based on facts that we have accumulated through our own professional experiences and the opinions of a few experts. I mean, we're in this together. So let's just admit how little we don't know. By doing so, we all instantly become more empowered because we've humbled ourselves and admitted that we need to open our minds. Because with these open minds, we can do our best to tap into this behavior, which can help your business make more sales. Now, we started this, the psychology of what you need to know about selling, but we started it with B2B. And in this 2-part series, we've received such great response that we knew the natural step was to extend our study and express our opinions on B2C buyer behavior. One important thing we discussed in the first part of this series, which was sales psychology, what you need to know, was that when a business is selling offline, they need to be very emotional because buyers tend to purchase based upon how products or services make them feel. Whereas when you're selling online, you have to tap into the desires and pain points as well, but you have to differentiate yourself from competition and get into more factual detail. In this part of the series, our first step is to look at the differences between B2B buyer behavior and B2C buyer behavior. How B2C buyer behavior differs from B2B buyer behavior is pretty important, especially if you do both. It's no surprise that business-to-consumer buyer behavior differs from business to business. Consumers typically purchase goods and services for personal use, whereas in B2B, the business is buying them as a means to manufacture other goods or resell them. Now, it's still a person involved, but it's being bought by a business. And each of those groups is unique regarding the individuals involved in the purchasing decision, the factors that influence that decision, and more. So here's 4 major differences between those two types of buyers. And this comes from BizFluent, BizFluent.com. Number 1, there's a difference in participants. B2C usually involves 1 or 2 buyers, with at least one being the final user or decision maker of the purchase or the product. In contrast, B2B typically consists of multiple participants. Yes, there's usually still 1 or 2 decision makers, but it's more by committee. These include all or some of the following types of people: the final user, the influencer of the final user, people who screen potential suppliers, purchasing managers who have to approve the purchase, could be a committee, could need if it's big enough ticket, the CFO involved, who could care less what's bought, they just care about the money. Number 2, behavioral characteristics. With B2C, there's thousands of consumers who may differ from one another in terms of demographics and buying habits. But if they're likely to purchase the same product, their needs and pain points and desires are usually the same. In contrast, in B2B, that usually consists of a few large buyers concentrated in a specific market. Businesses generally stick with the same supplier for years, forming a long and mutually beneficial partnership. Usually a bigger decision, too. Number 3, what about motivations or other factors? In B2C buyer behavior can be influenced by their occupation, their family, their age, their lifestyle choices, tend to make decisions based more on emotion than financial facts. Additionally, psychological influences play a role. Perception, beliefs, things of that nature. As for a B2B buyer, influences typically come from environmental and organizational factors, such as pressure from rising competition, changes in company policies, procedures, leadership, changes in technology, changing their business model, a lot more. Number 4, the purchasing process. With B2C, consumers typically go through 5 stages during the purchasing process. First, they're aware of a need they have, and they usually keep that to themselves. Then they start searching for information to solve a problem. That's not always shared. A few people might be asked. Then they evaluate the options available to them, and they're planning on just fixing this themselves. Then they make a purchase. they're happy with their purchase and become a repeat buyer, or they're dissatisfied with their purchase, they move on to a competitor. With B2B, the purchasing process also starts with awareness. However, given that there are more people involved, the road to actually making a purchase is much longer, and it's usually a deeper dive because they plan on using it for a longer period of time, whatever that purchase is, probably a bigger price ticket, and more impactful on their business than the B2C person. So how do you hone in on B2C prospects when they're visiting your website? I mean, they're making an online discovery, right? Well, we've pointed out the 4 major differences between B2C and their buyer behavior. And so now we're going to kind of move on. We think that data is the best tool you can have in your arsenal for understanding B2C buyer behavior. And the type of analytics available is only going to get better as we progress technologically. However, we aren't living in the future, and we have now, in the way of analytical tools, much needed to make improvements, and we'll attest to that throughout the Viral Solutions podcast if you follow us on a regular basis. Now, there was a study done that's on the chart is at viralsolutions.net in our blog on sales psychology. And this chart appears at marketingcharts.com, and it's from May 2018. It's done by Korn Ferry, Kornferry, Korn Ferry. And it talks about marketing function and the greatest need for advancement, and they're interviewing chief marketing officers, and by far the number one is analytics. At nearly 40% of CMOs say that's got to improve. Number 2 is personalization, with right at 30, by the way. To understand where analytics is heading, there's an article you should read from Beta News, betanews.com, from December 3rd, 2018. Because they talk about a lot of exciting changes on the horizon when it comes to analyzing buyer behavior. However, you're here now, and you're listening to the podcast, and you need answers today, and you don't care about what's going to happen tomorrow. I get it. Okay? We get it. So how can you best use the analytic tools available to you right now to help you better understand buyer behavior? We're confident that you're doing your best to try and tap into the behavior of your buyer using those current analytic tools. And that's great. But we suggest you take 2 steps to go deeper and amp up your game. First, unify B2C customer data. You got to take a unified view of your customer behavior and not just information from Google Analytics. You got to use what's in Google Analytics. You got to take what's in Facebook. You got to pull information from your marketing platform. We like a tool called Wicked Reports, and we pull data from there. Now, the way to do this is by including identity resolution technology into your analytic arsenal. And that simply means you're able to unify all the data gathered from different places into one silo. Now, there's tons of tools out there. Personally, we haven't found one that does this really well yet. So some of this is a matter of manually pulling it together. Then you got to understand the consumer buying cycle. Because the life cycle of each customer is a vital tool for all B2C marketers. It reveals how your current marketing efforts are functioning and how your loyal customers are behaving. And when you understand the life cycle of current customers and seeing that all-important second purchase, that helps you make better marketing decisions by becoming market-oriented and understanding your current and prospective B2C buyers. Because what one does, many will do. So even by integrating those two steps into your analytic arsenals, you'll be able to make more informed decisions, be a smarter marketer, and get a much better handle on what people are doing when they visit your website, because they have the leg up, because they're going to check you out. Now, we got to admit to what we do not know, all of us. And we should also try and make good, informed decisions and not be too close to our customer when we make those decisions. In doing so, you can increase the likelihood of attaining sales success in this sphere. Thanks for listening to the Viral Solutions podcast. You can find us at viralsolutions.net, or you can call us at 888-816-1222. Make it a great day.